The smell of dead charcoal is the first thing to greet me. It hangs heavy in the small wooden room, a stale gray scent that coats the back of the throat and signals that the fire in the copper brazier died hours ago. I lie still for a moment, listening to the silence of the house. The heavy wool quilt, my yorgan, presses down on me with a comforting weight, trapping a pocket of warmth against the biting chill of the Istanbul winter. The air outside the covers is sharp. I can feel it nipping at the tip of my nose and the exposed skin of my ears. I push the quilt aside. The cold rushes in like a physical blow, seizing my chest. I swing my legs out from the low mattress, my bare feet finding the woven rush mat that covers the floorboards. The reeds are brittle and icy beneath my soles. Light is just beginning to bleed through the caves. The intricate wooden lattice screens covering the windows, painting elaborate geometric shadows across the whitewashed walls. It is the gray, watery light of dawn, lacking any true warmth. Outside, the city is already murmuring. Somewhere down the steep cobblestone street, a donkey brays, the sound echoing off the timber walls of the overhanging houses. But the most important sound is the distant, melodic call of the muezzin, rising from the pencil-thin minaret of the neighborhood mosque. It weaves through the fog, calling the faithful to prayer. I must wash. I shiver as I stand, my nightshirt hanging loosely around my knees. In the corner of the room stands a brass ewer and a matching basin. I tilt the ewer, pouring water into the basin. The water has sat all night and is shockingly cold. I perform the abdest, the ritual ablution. I wash my hands 3 times, the water numbing my fingers. I rinse my mouth, gargling the icy liquid to chase away the taste of sleep. I sniff the water into my nose and blow it out. I wash my face, the shock of the cold tightening my skin and waking my mind. I wash my arms up to the elbows, rubbing the skin briskly to generate friction and heat. Finally, I wash my feet, balancing on one leg on the cold mat, drying them quickly with a rough linen towel to stop the shivering. I reach for a small stick of miswak, wood sitting on a low shelf. I chew the end until the fibers separate into a bristly brush. The bitter, astringent taste of the sap filling my mouth. I scrub my teeth and gums vigorously. A storyteller cannot have foul breath. My voice is my trade, but my presence is my currency. Dressing is a ritual of layers, a construction of defense against the damp Bosphorus wind. First comes the dawn, the knee-length drawers made of unbleached cotton. They are rough against the skin, but durable. I tie the drawstring at the waist. Next, the shalvar. These are my trousers, voluminous and baggy, made of a dark blue broadcloth. I step into them, pulling the excess fabric up and tightening the long cotton sash, the uchker, to hold them in place. The fabric bunches around my waist, creating pockets of air will insulate me throughout the day. Over my torso, I pull on a gomlik, a fine white cotton shirt that reaches down to my thighs. It has wide sleeves that I can roll back when I need to use my hands for emphatic gestures. I button it at the neck. Over this goes the antari, a long striped robe of mixed cotton and silk. It is old, the colors faded from a vibrant crimson to a dusty rust, but the fabric is still sound. It buttons all the way down the front, hugging the torso before flaring out slightly below the waist. Then comes the kushak, the sash. This is the foundation of a man's silhouette. It is a long strip of thick woolen cloth, dyed a deep indigo. I wind it around my waist once, twice, 3 times, pulling it tight. It supports my back and warms my kidneys. I tuck the end firmly into the folds. This sash is my pocket, my purse, and my holster. I check my chest. Inside the layers of the robe, I place my small pouch containing a few silver aksh coins and a dried piece of ginger for my throat. Finally, the headgear. A man is not dressed without his head covered. I place a white felt skull cap, the tack, onto my shaved head. Over this, I carefully wind a length of muslin cloth to form my turban. I wrap it methodically, ensuring the folds are neat and symmetrical. It must look respectable, scholarly, but approachable. I am a Meddah, a man of the people, not a high official of the port. I step out of the sleeping room and into the main living space, the sofa. The floorboards here are polished smooth by generations of feet. My wife is already awake. She is kneeling by the hearth, where a small fire is crackling, feeding on dry kindling. The smell of wood smoke mixes with the aroma of boiling garlic and vinegar. Sabalar Harelson, she murmurs, wishing me a blessed morning without looking up from the copper pot. May your morning be blessed, I reply, my voice still gravelly. I sit cross-legged on the sedir, the low cushioned bench that runs along the wall under the windows. Breakfast is not a feast, it is fuel. She places a round copper tray, the cine, on a low wooden stand in front of me. On it sits a wooden bowl filled with steaming tarhana soup. This is the lifeblood of the empire. It is a fermented mixture of grain, yogurt, and vegetables, dried in the summer sun and reconstituted now with boiling water, butter, and crumbled cheese. Beside it is a loaf of bread, dark and dense, bought yesterday from the neighborhood oven. I break the bread. The crust is thick, requiring a strong tear. I dip a chunk into the soup. The taste is sour, salty, and deeply savory. The heat spreads through my chest, chasing away the lingering chill of the bedroom. I eat with a wooden spoon, scraping the sides of the bowl. There is also a small dish of black olives, their skins wrinkled and oily, and a wedge of white sheep's cheese that is pungent and salty. I eat quickly. The sun is fully up now. and the light hitting the tray is brighter, revealing the scratches and dents in the copper surface. Once the meal is cleared, I remain on the sedir for the most critical part of my morning, the preparation of the mind. I close my eyes. Tonight, I will be performing at the Sinarli Coffee House near the market of the coppersmiths. The crowd there is rowdy, a mix of artisans, janissaries off duty, and merchants. They do not want soft poetry. They want wit. They want mockery. They want to see their neighbors satirized. I reach into the folds of my sash and pull out my macrama, a large handkerchief. It is cotton, embroidered with a simple floral pattern along the edges. This is not for blowing my nose. This piece of cloth is a veil, a woman's headscarf, a king's turban, a hangman's hood. I run the fabric through my fingers, feeling the texture. It is soft, worn thin in the center. Beside me on the bench lies my dignek, my staff. It is made of cherry wood, straight and polished to a deep shine by the oils of my palm. I pick it up. It is light but sturdy. I tap it against the floorboards. Tack, tack, tack. The sound is sharp. This stick is my rifle, my horse, my door knocker, my scepter. I clear my throat, testing the resonance. I begin to mutter, practicing the accents of the city. First, the haughty, nasal drawl of a palace scribe. I purse my lips, pitching my voice high and arrogant. Impossible, Effendi. Simply impossible. The paperwork alone. Then I shift my posture, slumping slightly. I drop my jaw, adopting the thick, guttural accent of a rough Albanian liver seller. Fresh liver, red as rubies. Come look, look. I practice the transition. The Meddah must vanish. I must become the story. I close my eyes and visualize the coffee house. I can smell the roasting beans, the heavy tobacco smoke from the long chabooks, the sweat of 40 men packed into a small room. I need a story that bites. Perhaps the tale of the hammam. Yes, the story of the man who lost his clothes in the bathhouse and had to walk home wearing a woman's fares. It allows for physical comedy, mimicry of female voices, and the classic misunderstanding that the crowd loves. I rehearse the opening lines under my breath. Friends, lovers, companions of the heart. I stop. My throat feels dry. I take a sip of water from a clay mug. The ginger in my sash will help later. But for now, I must preserve the vocal cords. It is time to leave. I stand and smooth down my robes. I move to the door where my street shoes are waiting. I slide my feet into a pair of soft yellow leather slippers, the mest. These are for indoor use or clean areas. Over them, I pull on sturdy black leather overshoes. The streets of Istanbul are treacherous, a mixture of mud, refuse, and animal dung. A man who ruins his yellow slippers in the muck is a man who lacks foresight. I wrap a heavy wool kaftan over my antari. It is dark brown, lined with rough cotton. It adds bulk, but the wind coming off the golden horn cuts through anything lighter. I tuck my staff under my arm and double-check my sash. Handkerchief? Yes. Coins? Yes. I open the heavy wooden door of my house and step out. The noise of the city hits me instantly. It is a roar of commerce and life. The narrow street is shadowed, the upper stories of the houses nearly touching overhead. A water carrier with a leather skin slung over his back shouts, "Water, sweet water," pushing past a donkey laden with baskets of charcoal. The air smells of wet stone, wood smoke, horse manure, and the faint, sweet scent of baking simmet from the corner oven. I begin my walk. The cobblestones are uneven and slick with morning dampness. I plant my staff firmly with each step. Clicky, clicky, clicky. I am not just walking to a coffee house. I am walking through the veins of the world's capital. I pass a group of women, veiled in white, their voices a low murmur as they head to the market. I pass a janissary, his high felt cap towering over the crowd, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his yataghan sword. I lower my eyes slightly in respect, but I watch him. I watch the way he walks, the swagger in his hips. I file it away. Tonight, that swagger will be part of my performance. I turn a corner, and the view opens up. Below me, the golden horn glimmers like hammered pewter under the gray sky. Hundreds of caiques, small wooden boats, dart across the water like water beetles. The masts of great galleons loom near the arsenal. The wind hits me full in the face, carrying the smell of salt and rotting seaweed. I pull my kaftan tighter. The morning is gone. The work begins. I am a hunter, and the city is my forest. I hunt for gestures, for voices, for the absurdities of human nature. I grip my staff. Today, I must be observant. Tonight, I must be magnificent. The sun has climbed to its zenith, hanging like a hammered brass shield over the peninsula. The shadow of the minaret has retracted into itself, a dark pool of ink at the base of the stone, signaling the hour of Zuhr. In the narrow arteries of Istanbul, the heat does not merely exist, it possesses weight. It presses down on the turban wrapped tight around my brow, turning the linen damp and heavy against my skin. My labor at this hour is not the performance itself, but the gathering of the fuel that will burn when the sun vanishes. A Meddah is a thief of souls. I must steal the gait of the porter, the arrogance of the janissary, and the trembling hands of the miser before I can sell them back to the crowd tonight. I navigate the crowd near the Bedestan. The air here is a physical assault, a dense tapestry of odors. There is the metallic tang of blood from the butcher's quarter, the sharp, stinging scent of alum and gallnut from the tanners downwind, and the overriding sweet rot of crushed fruit and horse manure. The noise is deafening, a wall of sound that I must pick apart thread by thread. I stop near a stall selling dried figs and nuts. I am not here to buy, but to watch the merchant. He is an Albanian, judging by his accent, a man with a thick neck and hands that look like they have been carved from oak roots. I watch how he argues with a customer over 3 acts. He leans forward, imposing his bulk, and wipes his nose with the back of his hand in a sharp, upward motion. I memorize this. My own hand twitches at my side, mimicking the gesture. Up, sharp wipe. I lock the rhythm of his speech into the library of my mind. His voice is gravel rolling in a tin bucket. Tonight, when I tell the story of the stubborn giant, I will use this man's throat. My legs ache from the standing. The caftan I wear is modest, a faded indigo wool that has seen better seasons, patched near the hem where the mud of the street splashes up. It is heavy, and the sweat trickles down my spine, a constant, itching reminder of the humidity rising from the Bosphorus. I make my way to the coffee house near the spice market. This is my workshop. It is my stage, my court, and my place of business. The sign above the door is weathered, the wood gray and splintering, but the smell drifting out is the smell of civilization itself. The dark, roasted bitterness of coffee. Pushing through the low door, the transition is jarring. The light inside is dim, filtered through wooden lattices that turn the harsh midday sun into soft, geometric patterns of amber on the floor. The air is cooler here, thick with the blue haze of tobacco smoke bubbling from the water pipes. Ismail, the Kavasai, stands by the hearth. The fire is dying down now, kept just hot enough to boil the water in the copper sieves. He nods to me, a microscopic dip of the chin. We are partners in this trade. I bring the stories that keep men in their seats, and he sells the black mud that keeps them awake to listen. I move to the raised platform in the corner. This is the sedir, the high bench where I will sit tonight. But now it is workspace. I take my staff, the dignek, from where I left it leaning against the wall. It is a simple length of cherry wood, polished smooth by the oils of my palm over 10 years. I inspect it for cracks. This stick is my horse, my sword, my rifle, and my scepter. I tap it against the floorboards. The sound is dull. I need it sharper. I take a small rag from my sash and rub the wood vigorously, cleaning off the dust and grime of the previous night. The friction warms the wood under my fingers. I test the weight, shifting it from hand to hand. Tonight, I must spin it so fast it becomes a blur, mimicking the propeller of a windmill in the tail of the fool. My wrist is stiff. The dampness of the city settles in the joints. I rotate my hand, feeling the tendons pop and grind. forcing flexibility back into the limb. Then the macrame. I pull the large handkerchief from my belt. It was once white, now a creamy off-white, stained slightly with the dust of use. This cloth is my mask. I shake it out, the fabric snapping in the quiet room. I drape it over my shoulder, then twist it rapidly around my neck to mimic a hangman's noose. I loosen it and drape it over my head like a veil. I whisper into the fabric, testing the acoustics. Oh, my soul, my sultan. I pitch my voice high, mimicking a coy woman. The cloth muffles the bass tones, filtering the sound. It works. I fold the macrame carefully, corner to corner, pressing the creases sharp with my thumb, and tuck it back into my sash. My stomach growls, a deep, hollow protest. It is time for the midday meal. I cannot eat heavily. A full belly makes the voice sluggish and the mind slow. I signal to Ismail's apprentice, a boy of no more than 12 years, with eyes too big for his face. A soup, I say, and bread. No onions today. Onions cling to the breath, and the audience is close. I cannot spray the scent of onions into the face of a patron who has paid good coin. The boy brings a wooden bowl of tarhana soup. It is a fermented mixture of grain and yogurt, dried, and then rehydrated with broth. It is thick, grainy, and sour. I break the round loaf of bread, the salmon, which is still warm from the baker's oven down the street. The crust is hard and dusted with flour. The inside is dense and gray. I dip the bread into the soup, watching the liquid soak into the sponge. I eat slowly. The spoon is carved from boxwood, worn shallow by years of scraping against bowls. The taste is familiar, the sourness cutting through the lingering taste of dust in my mouth. I eat a few olives, their flesh oily and salty, spitting the pits into my cupped hand before depositing them on the tray. While I eat, a man approaches. It is old Yusuf, a scribe who spends his days here waiting for illiterate soldiers who need letters written home. He smells of iron gall ink and old paper. "Effendi," he says, sitting on the low stool opposite me. "Will it be the story of Hamza tonight?" I chew a piece of bread, considering him. The people are tired of heroes, Yusuf. The taxes are high. The heat is oppressive. They do not want to hear of perfect warriors. Tonight, I tell of the hypocrite judge and the clever thief. Yusuf chuckles, a dry, wheezing sound. Dangerous ground. The caddy walks this district. The caddy knows he is a hypocrite, I reply, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. If he laughs, he forgives the truth. If I make him angry, it is because I was not funny enough. This is the social labor of the midday. I must gauge the mood of the district. Yusuf is my barometer. If the scribe is anxious, the street is anxious. If the scribe is laughing, the people are ready for satire. I finish the meal, and drink a cup of water, lukewarm, and tasting faintly of the clay jar it was stored in. Now begins the hardest part of the labor, the silence. To be a Meddah is to talk for 3 hours without ceasing. To prepare, I must hoard my voice. I move to the back of the coffee house, to a small niche near the window that overlooks the garden of the mosque. I sit cross-legged on the rush mat. The texture of the straw is rough against my ankles. I close my eyes. I do not sleep, but I enter a state of active rest. I run the lines of the story through my mind. I visualize the transitions. The thief enters the house. Click of the staff on the floor, the sound of the lock picking. The voice changes to the sleeping judge, a deep, rhythmic snoring. The thief knocks over a vase. Bang of the staff. The judge wakes, high-pitched panic. I rehearse the physical sensations. I tighten my stomach muscles, feeling the diaphragm expand. I practice the breathing, deep inhalations through the nose, filling the lower back, not the chest. Shallow breathing will kill a performance in the first hour. I must breathe like a diver. The sounds of the coffee house swell around me. The midday lull is breaking. More men are entering. I hear the clack of backgammon dice, the tavla hitting the wooden boards. The rhythm is erratic. Clack, clack. Pause. Slam. The murmur of conversation rises. A low drone of Turkish, Persian, and the rough slang of the port. I listen to a group of janissaries arguing in the corner. They are discussing the price of mutton. One of them has a lisp. I isolate the sound, th instead of s. I try it silently in my mouth. Thulton, Thoop, Thword. It is a small detail, but it is these details that make the caricature alive. I file it away. Perhaps the judge in my story will have a lisp tonight. The heat in the room rises as bodies fill the space. I can feel the sweat trickling down my ribs again. I adjust my turban, loosening the folds slightly to let the heat escape. I check my tools again. The staff is within reach. The handkerchief is secure. I stand up and stretch. My spine cracks. A series of small explosions in the quiet of my own hearing. I walk over to the kavasai. A coffee, I say. Black. No sugar. Sugar is for the wealthy and the women in the harem. A Meddah needs the bitterness to shock the throat and tighten the cords. Ismail hands me the fincan, the small porcelain cup sitting in a filigree metal holder. The porcelain is thin, almost translucent, imported from the East. The coffee is thick as mud, a dark froth on top. I sip it. The heat scalds my tongue, a necessary pain. The grounds coat my teeth. The caffeine hits me quickly, a sharpening of the edges of the world. The lethargy of the meal vanishes. I look around the room. The audience is forming. They are not an audience yet. They are just men drinking coffee. But I see the potential. I see the tired shoulders that need lifting. I see the angry eyes that need diversion. I see the boredom that is my enemy and my opportunity. I walk to the center of the room, not yet on the stage, but reclaiming the space. I greet the regulars, a nod to the butcher, a hand on the shoulder of the boatman. This is the politics of the floor. I must be one of them before I can be above them. I touch the rough wool of their coats, smell the garlic on their breath. I am grounding myself in their reality so I can take them out of it. The light in the lattice windows is changing, shifting from white to a deep golden yellow. The afternoon is waning. The peak of the day's labor, the preparation, the observation, the tuning of the instrument is nearly done. I return to my high seat. I place the staff across my knees. I fold my hands over the wood. I wait. My throat is ready. My mind is a coiled spring. The city outside is loud, but in here, I am the master of the noise. I am the Meddah, and soon I will speak. The thick haze of tobacco smoke hangs low in the coffee house, a gray shroud that stings the eyes and clings to the fibers of my wool caftan. My throat feels raw, stripped of its moisture by 3 hours of shouting, whispering, and mimicking the shrill voice of a nagging mother-in-law and the boom of a janissary officer. I bring the performance to its traditional close, tapping my macrack, the heavy wooden staff that serves as my scepter, my rifle, and my door knocker against the floorboards 3 times. Forgive us for our mistakes, I recite, my voice dropping to a humble murmur, stripping away the characters to reveal the man beneath. I bow to the assembly. The spell breaks. The silence that held the room shatters into the clinking of porcelain finjans against saucers and the low rumble of approval. I step down from the raised platform, my knees popping with the sudden release of tension. The owner of the coffee house, a man with a beard stained yellow by nicotine, nods to me as he collects the coins from the listeners. He hands me my share, a handful of silver axes and a few copper mangyers. I weigh them in my palm. It is a decent sum, enough to buy meat for 2 days and charcoal for the week. I tuck the coins into the deep sash wound tightly around my waist, feeling the hard metal press against my stomach. I carefully fold my handkerchief, the mendil, which had been a veil, a letter, and a hangman's noose only moments ago. I slide it into my breast pocket. Taking my staff, I step out of the warmth of the coffee house and into the biting chill of the Istanbul night. The transition is a physical shock. The air inside was heavy with human heat, roasted coffee, and the sweet, cloying scent of opium and tobacco. Outside, the air smells of the sea, damp wood, and the faint, sulfurous odor of refuse rotting in the gutters. It is fully dark now. The call to the Isha prayer, the final prayer of the day, has already faded from the minarets. The streets are no longer the domain of honest tradesmen. They now belong to the night watch, the stray dogs, and those up to no good. I fumble in my sash for my paper lantern. It is forbidden to walk the streets of Constantinople after dark without a light. And the Sabasi, the police superintendent, and his men are not known for their patience with violators. I strike a spark against the flint, coaxing a flame onto the tallow candle inside the lantern. The paper walls glow a dull orange, casting a fragile circle of light around my feet. I begin the walk home. My path takes me away from the commercial bustle of the Golden Horn, up the steep, winding cobblestones toward the residential mahal. The city is quiet, but never silent. I hear the distant bark of a pack of street dogs fighting over scraps near a butcher's shop. I hear the rhythmic tapping of the night watchman's stave against the stones, a warning to thieves that the law is awake. My leather vest, the soft inner shoes I wear, are protected by harder leather overshoes, but I still feel the unevenness of the stones. I step carefully. The streets are narrow, the upper stories of the wooden houses projecting outward so that they almost touch overhead, blotting out the stars. It is like walking through a tunnel. I keep my staff ready, gripping it firmly. A Meddah is a man of words, but a man of words must sometimes defend his purse with wood. I reach my neighborhood. The houses here are modest, unpainted timber turning gray with age. I stop before a heavy door studded with iron nails. I do not knock. The sound would disturb the neighbors. Instead, I rattle the iron ring in a specific rhythm, two quick, one slow. The latch lifts from the inside. The heavy timber door groans inward, revealing the courtyard of my home. My wife stands there, holding a small oil lamp. Her face is shadowed, her head covered by a simple white scarf. She smells of soap and fried onions. "Welcome," she says softly. I step over the threshold, murmuring a prayer of thanks for a safe return. I kick off my outer overshoes, leaving the street mud by the door, and step onto the clean rush mats of the hallway in my soft leather socks. The house is cool, but not cold. The heat of the day lingers in the wood, and I can smell the charcoal brazier burning in the main room. I am exhausted. The performance drains the spirit as much as the body. To be 5 different people in the span of an evening leaves one feeling hollowed out. I walk into the main room, the sofa, and collapse onto the low divan that lines the walls. The cushions are stuffed with wool and covered in a rough, durable Kaleem fabric. I lean back, closing my eyes, letting the buzzing of the coffee house fade from my ears. My wife brings a basin of copper and a ewer. I hold out my hands. She pours warm water over them. I wash the ink of the night, the dust, the sweat, the invisible residue of shaking hands with strangers from my skin. I scrub my face, running wet hands over my beard to smooth it. She hands me a towel, rough woven cotton, that feels abrasive and grounding against my skin. Is the soup ready? I ask. It has been waiting, she replies. She moves to the center of the room where the sofra, a low wooden stand, is placed. Upon it, she sets the cine, the large copper tray that serves as our dining table. We sit on the floor around it, legs folded. The meal is simple, but to a hungry man, it is a feast. There is a bowl of tarhana soup, thick and steaming, smelling of fermented yogurt and dried mint. Beside it sits a plate of bulgur pilaf, the grains cooked in broth until they are fluffy and distinct, glistening with a generous spoonful of butter. There is a small bowl of olives, black and wrinkled, and a chunk of white cheese. A loaf of salmon bread, purchased this morning, and now slightly tough, rests on the edge of the tray. We eat in silence. In the coffee house, I am required to fill every second with noise, with wit, with narrative. Here in the sanctity of my home, silence is a luxury. I break the bread, using the crust to scoop the thick soup. The sour, savory taste warms my chest. The bulgur is nutty and rich. I eat with my right hand, using 3 fingers to gather the grains, pressing them into a small ball before lifting them to my mouth. My wife eats sparingly, her eyes cast down at the tray, though occasionally she glances at me to gauge my mood. She pushes the bowl of cheese closer to me. Was the crowd generous? She asks eventually. Generous enough, I say. The story of the miser and the hammam bath always loosens their purse strings. She smiles, a small private expression. She clears the tray once we are finished, moving with the efficient, quiet grace of a woman who knows every creak of the floorboards. I move closer to the mangle, the brass brazier standing on its tripod in the center of the room. The embers are glowing deep red under a layer of gray ash. I extend my hands over the heat. The warmth seeps into my bones, easing the ache in my shoulders. This is the hour of winding down. There are no books to read. Candles are too expensive to burn for mere leisure, and my eyes are tired. Instead, I pull my tesbih, my prayer beads, from my sash. The amber beads are smooth and cool, polished by years of friction. I slide them through my fingers, one by one. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. The rhythmic clicking creates a trance-like state, washing away the lingering adrenaline of the performance. I think of the story for tomorrow. I must refresh the tale of the foolish judge. I run through the dialogue in my head, not speaking aloud, but shaping the words with my tongue against the roof of my mouth. I need to perfect the accent of the judge, pompous, drawn-out vowels, a lisp on the sibilants. My wife returns. It is time for the final duties. She checks the shutters on the windows, ensuring the iron latches are secure. The wind from the Bosphorus is picking up, rattling the wooden frames. We prepare for sleep. In our house, the furniture is fluid. The room that was a parlor and a dining room must now become a bedroom. I stand and help her open the ukluk, the large built-in cupboard in the wall. From its depths, we pull the mattresses, thick, heavy wool-stuffed sacks covered in striped ticking. We lay them out on the floor, side by side. Over these, we spread the sheets, linen that has been washed so many times it is soft as silk, but thinning in the center. Finally, the heavy quilt, the yorgan. It is covered in crimson satin, a remnant of a wealthier time, but heavy with cotton batting. I strip off my outer caftan, hanging it on a peg on the wall. I remove my sash, coiling it carefully so it does not wrinkle. I take off the 2 layers of shirts, down to my white cotton undershirt and drawers. The night air in the room is chilly once I step away from the brazier. I blow out the oil lamp. The room plunges into darkness, save for the faint, demon-eye glow of the brazier's embers. I lie down, the wool mattress compressing under my weight. It is firm, familiar. I pull the heavy quilt up to my chin. The weight of it is comforting, a shield against the world. Beside me, I hear the rhythmic breathing of my wife as she settles in. I stare up into the darkness. My mind flits briefly to the faces in the coffee house. The young merchant who laughed too loud. The old soldier who wept at the tragic verses. They are all characters in the great story, just as I am. The sounds of the city drift through the wooden walls. A dog barks, sharp and lonely. The wind whistles through the eaves. Somewhere far off, a night watchman shouts a greeting to another patrol. My body relaxes, muscle by muscle. The tension in my jaw, held tight from hours of contorting my face, finally releases. The copper taste of fatigue coats my tongue. I close my eyes. The mimicry stops. The voices in my head fall silent. I am no longer a prince, a beggar, or a fool. I am just a man, warm under a heavy quilt, waiting for the sun to bring another day of words. Sleep comes quickly, heavy and dreamless.